This week's case is about a family that made murder a family tradition. So let's get started. Hello everyone, my name is Brandy and it is time for another true crime case, mystery, or paranormal story with one or more of my fabulous felines. If you are a returning subscriber, welcome back, my feline friends, and a big shout out to my feline fans who help support this channel. I am Whoa! Gigi, don't get the camera, honey. Hey, Gigi. Ah. Sorry about that. Gigi decided that she wanted to rub against the camera. So what I was saying was I apologize that this video took longer to get out than normal. I actually, because at Christmas, I skipped a week and then I didn't update my 2023 calendar to reflect the fact that I skipped a week. So my 2023 calendar was off. And I live by my calendar. I'm one of those people. So then as I was doing this research, I was like, it seems like a long time since I put out a video. And well, it was. It's been 3 weeks and not 2. So I do apologize about that. But my calendar is all updated now, so I'm back to the 2-week schedule. We'll get there, I swear. So sorry about that. I did need more time for this case, though, ironically, because this case, I thought I was just researching a guy that murdered 2 females, 2 teenagers. But then as I got going through the history and stuff of researching it, this case is absolutely crazy. This is like a whole family affair thing. I just don't know what to say, so we're just going to jump in, and this video is going to be longer than my normal videos. So hopefully you'll get to see lots of kitties. Black Phillip back there. Buckle up because it's going to get bumpy, guys. Okay, we're going to discuss the family, the Weavers. So let's start at the very, very, very beginning with the grandparents. We have Dorothy and Ward Weaver Sr. Okay, so we're going to start with them, and then we'll go down through the generations and how this case plays out. It's crazy. So Dorothy and Ward Sr., they get married and they have some children, which included 2 daughters, and then Ward Weaver Jr., which we'll discuss him next. Now, I believe that's all the children they had, but I'm not 100%. But what I did find was that Dorothy, Ward Weaver Jr.'s mother, she apparently had this very deep hatred for men. I mean, almost surprisingly that she was married. But, back then that was kind of expected of you. So now a witness had stated that Dorothy once picked up a butcher knife and stated she wanted to cut off all the penises in her male family. So she wanted to cut off her husband's penis and her son's penis. So, yes, obviously, that came from somewhere. I'm assuming back then maybe she was, assaulted as a young woman, or maybe Ward Sr. was very bad to her. He wasn't abusive, so I'm assuming he beat her too. And she just developed this hatred, but back then divorce was a no. So you just had to stick it out. And this is what happens when stuff like that happens. So due to Dorothy's unhappiness and Ward Sr. not being a very great guy, they were very abusive to their children and I assume each other. Now, Dorothy was so abusive to her son, Ward Jr., when he was misbehaving. So it was more than just hitting. She'd actually bite him until he bled. But then on the opposite side, she had this territorial type hold over him, and she made Ward Jr. sleep in her bed until he was a grown man. Yes, you heard that right. Grown man, meaning he was 18, 19 years old. But we'll get more into that a little bit later. Now, Ward Sr., like I said, was not a good guy himself and no better. He was abusive to his family, and he allegedly raped his daughter. And then later, when Ward Jr. would end up having children, he would end up having 2 daughters. Ward Sr. molested both of those granddaughters as well. So, yeah, great guy. Great start in life. So, Ward Sr. would end up passing away a few years later. That's kind of the beginning of the family. Now we're going to move on to Ward Weaver Jr. So obviously, growing up in this type of environment of abuse and blatant sexual assault, I guess, is not good. And, kids do pick up on stuff and think things are normal when they're in this situation. So Ward Jr. started having behaviors that, of course, mimicked his parents and were not, quote unquote, normal. This included torturing and killing of animals. His favorite animal to torture was a cat, Dick. He also abused his youngest sister, much like he saw his parents abusing him. When Ward's sister was 6 years old, Ward was playing outside with a hatchet. He made his sister put her hand out on a wooden stump, and then Ward cut off one of her fingers with the hatchet. About a year later, Ward would tie his youngest sister to a tree and put a noose around her neck and kind of just left her hanging there for a couple hours. And then he finally came back to see if she was dead, which she was not. And he untied her and, I guess this was normal. So she never said anything to anybody. When the younger sister turned 9 years old, Ward would sexually assault her for the first time. At age 12, when Ward Jr. was age 12, he followed in his dad's footsteps and he would full on rape his younger sister. When Ward turned 18 years old, he married his first wife named Patricia, who went by Trish as a nickname. Now, even though he was married, he still lived at home with his mother, and Trish had moved in also. And at this time, Ward Sr. was still alive. Now, remember when I said that Dorothy made her son sleep with her until he was a grown man? Well, on his wedding night, Dorothy made Ward Jr. sleep in her bed and not his wife's. So this then caused issues between the couple as well. Now, Ward Jr. and Trish would go on to have 3 children together, 2 girls and a boy. And the 2 girls would go on to be molested by their grandfather, Ward Sr. And then Ward Sr. would soon pass away after that. Now, after 6 years of marriage and putting up with this weird situation with Ward's family, Trish was fed up with it and filed for divorce. Trish did take custody of the kids, and Ward Jr. Really didn't bother to be a father after that. He was 24 years old. He was free from his wife and family life, no longer had to have those responsibilities and could do whatever he wanted to do. And that's exactly what he did. He acted like they didn't even exist at this point. Now, in 1967, Ward Jr. went to Vietnam and served until 1969. Now, he was discharged from the service, and then he would get a job as a long-haul truck driver. Ward enjoyed this job as a long-haul truck driver because he liked being by himself and kind of the isolation. And again, he was free to do whatever he wanted with no responsibilities. Now, Ward Jr. would eventually meet a woman and get remarried, and they would have 3 more children together. Now, they knew about their half-siblings. They knew that Ward had other kids with another woman, but they never had any contact with them since Ward kind of just pushed him out of his life and had no desire to get together or see them. So while Ward was enjoying his life as a long-haul truck driver, in 1976 is when he would commit his first assault on record, that is. Ward Jr. enticed a young woman into his truck where he would proceed to hit her on the head with a bat. His intention was to knock her out so he could sexually assault her. However, the woman did not get knocked out, and she was able to fight her way out of the truck, run away, and call the police. Ward Jr. would be arrested for this, and he would take a plea deal, and he would end up serving 3 years in jail for this assault. Once he got out of jail in 1981, while he was on the road, he met a young couple named David, who was 19 years old, and Michelle, who was only 15 years old. Them two were boyfriend and girlfriend, and they were sort of running away together. They were hitchhiking, and guess who they flagged down? Well, Ward Jr. in his truck. So Ward Jr. told David that he could find him work if he wanted while they were in town, and Ward would introduce David to his friend named Gerald. Now, David would end up going with Gerald to talk about this job opportunity, and Michelle would stay in the truck with Ward Jr. This was all a ploy, however, and Gerald would end up taking David out to like this wooded area, and he would end up shooting him 3 times, and then he pushed him down an embankment. Ward Jr. would go on to sexually assault and keep Michelle tied up for several days. Here is the miraculous part. David did not die, either from the gunshots nor being pushed down the embankment. He was lucky that the bullets missed vital organs, and he was able to climb out of the embankment, flag down a car, who then went and got help. David knew enough details, and he notified the police of Ward Jr.'s truck, and the police were able to track down Ward Jr. and successfully then rescue Michelle. She was still alive as well, thank God. Ward Jr. would be charged with false imprisonment, rape, and accessory to attempted murder. He would be sent to San Quentin prison for 42 years. His life of crime was over at this point. Gerald, his friend who shot the young David, was also caught, and he was given 39 years in prison for attempted murder. So luckily, David and Michelle both went on to survive and live their lives. Now, Ward Jr. is in jail, and in May of 1982, he's been in jail for about a year. Ward Jr. befriended a fellow inmate, like they all do, right? And they just started sharing stories, trying to one-up each other on the things that they've done. Ward Jr. then told this inmate a story of what he had done and what he had not been caught for. Ward Jr. began to tell a story as how he beat an Air Force airman named Robert Radford to death, and then kidnapped Robert's girlfriend named Barbara and went on to sexually assault her, and then ended up killing her. Also, this inmate that Ward Jr. befriended told authorities about the story in order to try to get out of prison early. So, no honor among thieves, right? So the police then investigated. Sure enough, there was an unsolved murder of an airman from February of 1981, and his girlfriend had been missing ever since, and the case had gone cold. So Ward would have committed this crime early in February of 1981, and then in late 1981, that's when he would commit the crimes against David and Michelle. So as the story goes, Robert and Barbara, the young couple, were on a road trip to meet Robert's family as the two were going to become engaged. And then their car broke down on the side of the road. Well, it was right on Ward Jr.'s route, and Ward would pull over and offer the couple a ride. And after Ward saw Barbara, well, his urges kicked in. He was very attracted to her. Ward asked Robert to go back to the back of the truck to help him with something, and that's when Ward Jr. would hit Robert over the head with a pipe. Ward would later claim that he had no idea he actually killed Robert when he was beating him with the pipe. He just wanted to knock Robert out so then he could be, left to assault Barbara with no complications. But apparently he said he hit him too hard or hit him too many times. So he died. He ended up leaving Robert on the side of the road. He would kidnap Barbara at knife point. He would then sexually assault Barbara multiple times over the next 24 hours. So Ward Jr. actually kept Barbara in his truck tied up, and he would continue to do his deliveries while, Barbara was being held captive. But she was so frightened that she never tried to escape or tried to call for help because she thought Robert was still alive. And so Ward kept threatening her with, "I will have my friend kill Robert if you don't do what I say." When Ward Jr. was scheduled to, done with his long haul trucking and had to go back home, again to his wife and kids that he has at this time, he pulled over a couple miles from his house. Now, Ward Jr. stated he planned not to kill Barbara, so he says, and just let her go on the side of the road. He said he tied Barbara up with electrical tape and was going to just kind of push her down the side of the ditch because, somebody would find her later and just leave. However, when he tried to gag Barbara with a rag, she bit down on his thumb and she would not let go. So this sent Ward Jr. into a rage, and he stated he ended up strangling her to death with a cloth diaper, like a cloth diaper he had in his truck for his kids. So how unnerving is that? He then buried her body down in the ditch where she was strangled and headed off to go pick up his wife at a local diner where his wife worked. So, he just did this and then, all right, got to go pick up the wife, no big deal. Later that night, Ward would return in his wife's car to the ditch where he buried Barbara, and he would dig her up because he didn't want anybody to find her. He would then take her body to his house, and in the middle of the night, he would end up burying Barbara's body in his backyard. Then a few days later, he would dig up the body again from his backyard, and he actually placed her in another spot where they were digging a trench to fix a sewer pipe or something because it was a lot deeper. So he put her in there, and then he filled it in with dirt, and then he ended up putting a wooden slab over where he buried her. He then surprised his wife and told her that he did this for her so she could now, stand on this wooden slab while she was hanging the laundry up in the backyard and not get her feet wet if, the grass was wet. So yeah, what a nice gift, Ward. That's great. So that's the supposed story that Ward Jr. would tell and admit to the police. I mean, he was already in jail, so why not come clean, right? So authorities had to get proof of this story. So they ended up going to Ward Jr.'s house where his wife and youngest son were still living, and they asked for consent to dig up under the wooden slab. Ward Jr.'s wife gave permission, and they get to work, and they do find a body. They do determine it's Barbara through dental records because the body was so decomposed at that point. So Ward was charged with the double murder of Robert and Barbara, and he actually got sentenced to death for this one. So he was on death row. Now, Ward would go on to say that he had two voices in his head, that there was a female voice that he named Liddell, and that apparently she had been around ever since he was 17 years old, and she represented the good side, the what you should do to be a, upstanding citizen. You shouldn't rape and murder and all that stuff. He then said that there was a bad voice, and it was a male voice, and he never named this bad voice. He just called it the male voice, and that this guy showed up when Ward was in Vietnam. Ward mainly started listening to the male voice because this voice protected him while he was in Vietnam. He said that he would be hiding behind a tree, and this voice would tell him, the enemy's right there, don't move, and the voice was right. So he started trusting this voice because the voice kept him alive. The male voice then, after Vietnam, was the one telling him to assault Barbara, to assault Michelle, to do all the bad things. And the female voice would be there saying, no, don't do that. Let her go. Let her go. But he, again, would always listen to the male voice. Now, obviously, there were many mental health professionals brought in, and they actually said that Ward Jr. had anything from, PTSD from Vietnam, social disorder, schizophrenia. Let's be honest, he probably had a bit of all three, right? The state of California would end up abolishing the death penalty. So Ward, he is still considered to be on death row, but he's just sitting there. He's just, it's a wait game. You're either going to die or you're going to get executed if California reverses its decision. So that's where Ward Jr. is now. The investigators continued investigating Ward Jr.'s whereabouts, like when he was a long-haul truck driver, because there were many unsolved murders or like missing people that were never found around these certain areas. When they checked Ward Jr.'s like trucking logs and where he would, do deliveries and stuff, or when he would stay the night somewhere while he was doing his job, they found that Ward was always in the area where these murders or missing people happened. And there was 26 unsolved cases that they could potentially link him to, but they had no evidence to do that. But he was in the area when these happened. So they think Ward Jr. did way more than he's admitting to, but they've never been able to connect those cases to him completely. That was another reason his death sentence was a little delayed, because they were like, we still want to talk to him about this stuff. But Ward's never admitted to anything. So to summarize thus far, Ward Weaver Sr., he raped his daughter and molested his granddaughters, and he is now deceased. And Ward Weaver Jr. is in prison waiting on death row. Okay, so when Ward Jr. was married to his first wife, Trish. Remember, they had 3 kids together. Ward Weaver III was the son out of that first batch, okay? So we're now going to catch up with Ward Weaver III. Now, Ward Weaver III had very little contact with his father, Ward Jr., because, Trish divorced him and then left with the kids, and then Ward Jr. didn't want anything to do with that family, right? Before he remarried and had other kids. This happened when Ward III was only like 4 or 5 years old. So he did not grow up with Ward Jr. at all. He was with his mother this whole time. So how has his life gone? Well, a couple of years after Trish divorced Ward Jr., she met a man and got remarried. Unfortunately, this man was an alcoholic and a very violent person also. So this stepfather, who is a violent drunk, would beat Ward III with his belt. And so pretty much Ward III didn't have it any better between, if he would have stayed with his dad, he probably would have been beat, and now he's being beat by his stepfather. So anyway, cycle of abuse continues. Now, it is believed due to the abuse that Ward III was getting from his stepfather, he would then, in turn, of course, inflict beatings on his youngest sister and his stepbrother. When Ward was 12 years old, he would sexually assault a family member, and it's believed that this may not be the only one he assaulted at this age. This is just the only one that was kind of confirmed. By 1981, when Ward was 18, a teenage relative of his accused him of beating her and raping her. Does this all sound familiar? It's amazing how he's still following in his father's footsteps, even though he was never around his father that much. Now, authorities did investigate this rape that Ward III was accused of and beating allegations, and found it to be that it happened. But unfortunately, no charges were brought against Ward III because Ward had enlisted in the Army, and he was actually shipping out in a couple weeks, so he was leaving the state. And so everybody thought it was better just to drop everything. We all know how that goes, right? Ward joined the U.S. Navy Reserve, but he only lasted about a year because in 1982, they dishonorably discharged him for heavy drinking and dereliction of duty. When Ward had an assignment that he must be somewhere or go to a post, he wouldn't do it. So, yeah, that's a big no-no in the service, guys. So Ward would meet his first wife, Maria, while he was in the Navy Reserve, because he was in the Philippines at the time and she was Filipino. After he was discharged, the couple lived with his girlfriend Maria's parents, and then Maria soon fell pregnant. When Maria was 5 months pregnant, Ward and she had an argument, and it ended in Ward physically assaulting her and ended up putting her in the hospital. So now we know Ward III has violent tendencies as well. Maria would go on to give birth to their first child, a son, and she never pressed charges on Ward III. Of course not. So a pattern of domestic violence would be prevalent throughout their marriage. Now, the couple would end up getting married in 1984, and they would move from the Philippines to Bakersfield, California. So now they're back in the States. Now, money was tight, and so when they moved to Bakersfield, they actually lived with some friends, and those friends had 2 teenage daughters. In 1986, after a night of heavy drinking, Ward III asked the 2 teenagers to take him to the store because he needed more booze. So while at the store, for some reason, Ward picked up a concrete block and struck one of the daughters on the head, knocking her out. And this was happening right outside of the store. So he then attempted to attack the other teenage girl, but he was really drunk. And the other teenage girl would go on to say, she was like, "Ward, it's me. What are you doing?" It was like he was in this blackout. So she was able to get away because he was so drunk, and then passersby would end up subduing Ward and calling the police. Ward would be arrested and would be sentenced to 3 years in prison for this assault, just like the first time his dad was caught. Pattern? Ward was released from prison, and him and Maria would go on to have 2 more children, another son, and a daughter named Mallory. Mallory comes into play later in this. In 1993, Maria finally had enough and filed for divorce and for a protective order. Now, I couldn't really find in my research, but it appeared for some reason Ward got custody of all 3 children. I don't know if Maria went back to the Philippines or what happened, but this is what I know. At least Mallory, he had full custody of Mallory, but the children were with him pretty much the whole time. So Ward quickly found another girlfriend after his divorce, and of course he would go on to regularly assault her. Ward would be arrested for beating his new girlfriend because he hit her with a cast iron skillet. Again, the girlfriend refused to press charges, and the 2 would go on to marry each other in 1996. But their marriage was short-lived as Ward started having an affair with a coworker, and that's what made his wife leave. Not the beatings, the affair. Look, I'm not trying to badmouth the women in this situation because I know men like this know what to look for and how to find women that will, go along with their stuff. But guys, just speak up, please. You'll be so much better for it. Okay, so after Ward's second divorce, I should say, Ward moved his kids and his new coworker girlfriend to Oregon City. So in Oregon is when Ward III decides to follow in his father, Ward Jr.'s footsteps. Oh, and by the way, when Ward Jr. got arrested, Ward III would actually regularly go visit his father. And some people say that, when Ward III would talk about his father, Ward Jr., he, idolized him. Yeah, I don't know why he would pick his father for a role model when his father was accused of these terrible things, but There you go. So that gives you a look into the state of mind of the Ward III. Anyway, so Ward III's daughter, Mallory, is now 12 years old, and she has two friends from school named Ashley Pond and Miranda Gaddis. Ashley was 12 years old and Miranda was 13 years old. The three of them were very close, and these two friends would sleep over at Ward's house regularly, and their bus stop was actually pretty much in front of Ward's house. And so Ward was known to give rides to these two girls if they kind of like were late and missed the bus. So yeah, everybody was very well acquainted in that circle. So let's first talk about Ashley Pond. So Ashley sort of had a chaotic home life. It wasn't great. Her parents were going through a divorce, and there ended up being a DNA test done to establish paternity for child support. And it was discovered that who Ashley thought her father wasn't actually her biological father. So after the shock of that, Ashley began having, weekend visits with her biological father when they found out who that was. I mean, obviously her mother knew who it was, but so they established paternity. And so she started to going over to her biological father's for weekend visits, to get to know him. Unfortunately, her biological father was not a good guy. It's like, I feel like no good guys are in this story, so I apologize, men. But her biological father started sexually abusing her. Her biological father was arrested, and he plea bargained down, and he was sentenced to a 10-year probation. Not jail, guys. Probation. So it was pretty much just a slap on the wrist. Ashley, of course, didn't really see her biological father anymore. The stepfather, or the one she thought was her father, is out of the picture at this point. Basically, just had her mother at that point. Well, Ashley's mother had boyfriends that would kind of come in and out. And there were many times that, cops were called to their apartment due to domestic violence issues between her mother and the boyfriends. So Ashley started spending a lot of time over at her friend Mallory's house, Ward's daughter. So she wanted to escape the chaos, and at one point she actually sort of moved in with them. She stayed with them for a long term of time. There had been, suspicions on Ward's treatment of Ashley. On one occasion, when Ward dropped Ashley off at school, a teacher witnessed Ward kissing Ashley on the lips, like in a sensual way, and she did report it. The teacher reported it to the principal, but there just didn't seem to be any follow-up on that. Nothing ever happened out of that. In July of 2001, Ashley went on vacation with the Weavers, and when they returned from their trip, Ashley actually decided to go back home to her mom, and she would end up telling her mom that Ward molested her. Ward III molested her. Ward got word of what Ashley was accusing him of, and he called Ashley's mother or her relatives, or it was a mother, aunt or something. He told them that Ashley was no longer allowed at his house because what he was being accused of, was sick, and he would never do that, and blah, 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 blah. And that basically she just ruined their relationship, so she was no longer allowed at their house. Now, after this accusation, a witness had come forward and they said that they were at Ashley's mother's apartment one day when Ashley was staying with Ward Weaver, and Ward Weaver's girlfriend had called, the coworker that he was having an affair with, so he's still with her. She had called Ashley's mother. Ward's girlfriend allegedly told Ashley's mother that she needed to make her daughter come home and that Ashley shouldn't stay at their house anymore. She went on to tell Ashley's mother that Ward was spending more time with Ashley than he was with his own family, including her, and that she even told Ashley's mother that Ashley would sleep in bed with Ward while the girlfriend had to sleep elsewhere in the house. The friend that was over at Ashley's mother's house, they reported it to Child Protective Services, but again, it never really got followed up upon. There was some confusion over whether it was Child Protective Services that were supposed to do this or the cops. So they just said they turned it over to the cops and the cops didn't do it. So, people blaming everybody else. So again, this accusation was never followed upon. By December of 2001, Ashley is now back with her mother, and she's, banned from the Weavers' house because Ward was so disgusted by the accusations, Ward and his girlfriend are still fighting over Ashley due to the accusations. The girlfriend got fed up and she moved out and left. Less than 2 weeks later, Ashley disappears. On January 9th, 2002, Ashley told her mother goodbye and walked to the bus stop. She never got on the bus, and she was never seen after that. So let's talk a little bit about now Miranda Gaddis, the other friend in Mallory Weaver's circle. Unfortunately, Miranda's past wasn't much better than Ashley's. She had been sexually abused by her mother's boyfriend. Her mother's boyfriend was arrested in 1999, and he did go to prison for his crime. Now, since Mallory, Ashley, and Miranda were close, Ashley confided in Miranda about details of her sexual abuse by Ward the third. Yeah, we're on Ward the third, right? Okay. So Miranda was a big help to police when they were investigating Ashley's disappearance and getting kind of that history of what's going on. Now, being a 12-year-old girl, keeping things like this a secret is hard, of course, right? At Mallory's birthday party that was held at Ward's house, apparently Miranda told others at the party that Ward had raped Ashley. Well, it was soon all over school that this had happened, and Mallory then became the target of her classmates. She was being bullied because of what her dad allegedly did, which I feel bad for Mallory because even, I'm pretty sure Ward did do this to Ashley, but it's not Mallory's fault. So there were days that Mallory, just didn't want to go to school. She refused to go to school because the bullying was so bad. And, Ward just got more furious as these things just started, allegations kept ramping up against him. On March 8th, 2002, exactly 2 months after Ashley disappeared, Miranda left for the school bus. It's the same school bus stop that Mallory and Ashley go to right in front of Ward's house. But just like Ashley, Miranda never got on the bus, and she disappeared as well. So now the police have 2 investigations on their hands of these 2 missing girls. Because of both the girls' history, some believe that the girls just ran away. They'd had enough, but their parents were adamant that that wouldn't happen. Miranda had nothing to run away from currently, at least, because that boyfriend that, sexually assaulted her, he's in jail. And Ashley had actually been showing significant improvement in her attitude, her grades, and everything since she was no longer going over to Ward's house. So if you kind of read a little context into this, if you've ever known a young girl that is being, sexually assaulted or abused by somebody, they're withdrawn and they're, quiet and grades suffer and they just kind of lose interest. But Ashley was actually coming out of that and becoming, the girl that her mother knew she could be. So authorities finally agreed that the girls were not runaways. And because of the similarities in the case, they assumed that the same person was responsible for their disappearance. The authorities checked over 150 potential suspects. Just as a side note, the apartment complex that Ashley and Miranda lived in was kind of a low income type apartment complex. And I'm not saying anything bad about those complexes, but this particular complex was known for, criminal activity, drugs, and there were a lot of sexual predators in the area, convicted sexual predators in the area. So they were pulling everybody and talking to them. Obviously, Ward Weaver III was on the list of suspects, but they didn't have any evidence. There was nothing that was there to really link that together where they could do anything. The woods and the fields were searched by volunteers. They brought in search dogs, but nothing was ever found that was significant. Now, there was a kind of private search dog handler that wasn't satisfied and wanted to go out by himself with his dog, and he did that. He searched the woods and the fields and didn't find anything. Since the dog handler knew that Ward Weaver was kind of on the, persons of interest list, the handler did go to Ward Weaver's house and asked permission to search his property. Ward did give him permission. However, he told the handler that he needed to keep the dog away from this freshly poured concrete slab. Yeah, because the slab was still drying. Jeez, does that sound familiar? So the dog handler searched the property. The dog, if you went near the concrete slab, was kind of alerting, but the handler couldn't really get a read because he wasn't allowed near the slab, like right next to it. So he did tell authorities what had happened at Ward's house. This, of course, put Ward at the top of the suspect list, and Ward then decided to talk to the media because he was just getting all this hate from everybody, and he didn't do nothing, right? Now, at one point, Ashley and Miranda's parents became very frustrated because, all this attention got on Ward, and of course, they were wanted to know what happened to their girls, and the police couldn't do anything. They just didn't have enough evidence. Ward talks to the media, and he tells this, newswoman that's interviewing that he built the concrete slab for a new jacuzzi, that he was going to put on it. And he had no idea what happened to Ashley or Miranda, and the only reason they were looking at him is because of Ashley's allegations. He stated there also hasn't been a search warrant executed on him. So again, that means that he was innocent because no cops have executed a search warrant on me, Well, here's the thing. The authorities had actually tried to get a search warrant for Ward's property several times, but there was no probable cause, so they could not get a judge to sign off on it. And this was what was making Ashley and Miranda's parents crazy. And at one point, Ashley's mother had put a sign on the concrete slab at Ward's rental house and was like, "Dig me up." Like, she just knew her daughter was under there, which is heartbreaking. Nothing moved forward on either case of the girls for months because they could not find any evidence at all. And they couldn't get a damn search warrant. Now, in August of 2002, there was sort of a break in the case. Ward decided that he was going to leave town because he was under so much scrutiny. And of course, nothing was stopping him from leaving town. So he had been packing up most of his things. He was finishing up, and he asked his oldest son, who had a 19-year-old girlfriend, to come help finish up. The son didn't come, but the girlfriend did. While the girlfriend was in the bathroom packing stuff up, Ward attacked her and ripped off her clothes. He would then rape her and then attempted to strangle her. The girlfriend was able to break free and escape from Ward, and she ran outside with nothing but the shower curtain wrapped around her. She was able to call the police. Police acted immediately and found Ward heading out of town and promptly arrested him. Now, a week after Ward's arrest, Ward's son, Francis, he told police that his father, Ward, had told him he had done some bad things and that he had planned to leave town, and that's why he was packing up. When Francis pressed Ward on more details, like, "What exactly did you do, Dad?" He stated that Ward didn't say much, but Francis just had this feeling it had to do with Ashley and Miranda and the concrete slab in the backyard. So because Ward decided to attack his son's girlfriend, and with his second son's, Francis, information, now they had enough probable cause to get a search warrant for the house. The search started the following day. Immediately after they secured the warrant, the police announced that they had found human remains inside a cardboard box that was in a storage shed behind Ward's house in the backyard. The remains had been there long enough that they were decomposed and they had to wait for positive identification, but they were pretty sure it was one of the girls. Next, they tackled the concrete slab. And once they dug under that, they found a 55-gallon barrel, and inside that barrel was a second set of human remains. A few days later, both remains were identified to be Ashley Pond and Miranda Gaddis. Ashley's remains were in the barrel, and Miranda's remains was in the box in the shed. It's believed that Ward killed Ashley because of her allegations and then turned around and killed Miranda because Miranda was spreading the allegations to everybody else. Ward III was then charged with aggravated murder, rape, sexual abuse, and abuse of a corpse. He was charged with rape for attacking the son's girlfriend, and he had other rape charges brought against him by another young girl he allegedly raped in July of 2002. So that would have been 3 months after Miranda's disappearance. So he kills Ashley, kills Miranda, rapes another girl, and then rapes his son's girlfriend. What a great guy. So in 2004, before the trial took place for Ward III, Ward's attorney presented evidence to the courts that Ward suffered from severe depression since being arrested and now that he's in jail. Who isn't depressed in jail? I mean, anyway. Well, this revelation got Ward sent to a state mental hospital for treatment because apparently it was severe. By late summer of 2004, psychiatrists at the mental hospital stated that he was competent for trial and that he could be moved back to the jail. And they also noted that he had been faking some of his symptoms. They had no doubt that he was depressed because he got caught, but that he wasn't severe. He had been faking those. Ward decided not to, take his chance in court, and he took a plea deal where he pleaded guilty to 7 of the 17 charges, included aggravated murder, sex abuse, rape, and the abuse of a corpse in order to avoid the death penalty. Although, to this day, he still says he's innocent. So, Ward III was sentenced to 2 consecutive life sentences without the possibility of parole. Ward never provided any details on his crimes, so when, where, and how he killed these girls went unanswered. In 2007, Ward was getting his hair cut by an inmate barber, and the inmate stabbed Ward with a homemade shank. A guard intervened, and Ward did survive the injuries. Too bad. In 2009, Miranda Gaddis' younger sister decided to visit Ward in prison to try to gain closure for the death of her sister. She stated that during the meeting, Ward allegedly stated he planned to actually attack her next, but she was just too young at the time. Apparently, he has a line that he won't cross. Who knew? But she also stated that Ward did admit to her that he strangled both of the girls. So whether that's true or not, I have no idea. So Ward is now in prison for the rest of his life. He can't appeal because of his plea bargain. So yay. All right. So lastly, let's move on to Francis Weaver. Now, Francis Weaver was the 19-year-old son that came forward to police saying that Ward, admitted some things to him. So although, Francis came forward, gave that information that allowed, the search warrant and everything, great. Thank you, Francis, for doing that. But unfortunately, Francis wasn't so innocent himself. In 2014, he was charged with murder for robbing and killing a drug dealer. He was sentenced to life in prison without parole. When Francis was arrested, Francis's mother came forward to announce that Francis wasn't really Ward Weaver III's real son. Ward was not the biological father of Francis. Apparently, she cheated on Ward and had gotten pregnant by another man. So it was just one of those things where I think she wanted to separate the two because of this family kind of tradition kind of coming down. but he was raised by Ward, so it's like, Now, Mallory, Ward's only daughter, she was actually arrested in 2010 for attacking a security guard. Apparently, Maria, her mother, was admitted to the hospital for some mental health issues. For some reason, I don't know why, I can't get the details, but Mallory and her stepfather tried to remove Maria from the hospital by force. Security then stopped Mallory and a struggle ensued, which resulted in Mallory punching 2 security guards in the face. Now, Mallory was acquitted of these charges at her trial, however. So yeah, I mean, this crazy story of the Weaver family. What do you think about this case? I mean, gosh, can it get any worse? I'm afraid to ask that, So please let me know what you think in the comments down below. Again, I'm sorry for missing last week, but I'm back on track now. It was probably a good thing I didn't do a video last week anyway, because I celebrated my birthday last week. So, it was nice to just kind of chill. So thank you for tuning in and sticking with me for this longer video. And I will see you in 2 weeks in the next video, okay? All right, bye guys.